You're listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged Wagyu steaks and chops. Yes, prime, USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Some of the best in the business. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steak, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had. Probably be the best you've ever had as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call. Find out what's for dinner at 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. Yes! And a big welcome in everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast, from Honolulu all the way down to Southwest Florida. A whole bunch of points in between. Actually, we're in all Nielsen-rated markets on hotel television, as well as on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, and WOW cable affiliates in select cities as well. Also streaming on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure you go to the Sports Circus.com and check out everything that the show has to offer. Yes. All right. So by now you've probably heard that Nick Saban has hung it up. 7-time national champion. This guy says, you know what? Maybe it's time. So Alabama head coach Nick Saban is now former Alabama head coach Nick Saban. And of course, the most successful coach in modern college football history. On top of it, folks, this guy just retired after 17 seasons with Alabama. And, of course, the former college defensive back got his start coaching in 1970s. Back in the 1970s, and got his first head coaching gig way back in 1990. So, in case you're wondering, a lot of people are, here's a timeline of the coaching career that spanned more than 300 wins as a head coach in both college football and the NFL, and included 7 national titles over 21 of the prior seasons. Now, way back in 1973, Nick starts his coaching career at his alma mater. After playing defensive back for 3 seasons at Kent State of the Mid-American Conference, Nick Saban moved into a graduate assistant role for the 1973 and 74 seasons. That's a long time ago, folks. After 2 years as a graduate assistant, he coached linebackers for Kent State before moving on to Syracuse for a season, and then to his home state of West Virginia, where he coached defensive backs for the Mountaineers way back in 1978 and 1979. Now, up to 1990 is when Nick Saban got his first head coaching gig. In fact, he was so well-traveled through the 1980s as he had stints with Ohio State, Navy, Michigan State, and the Houston Oilers. His longest stop during the decade was Michigan State, where he served as a defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach from 1983 to 1987. Now, he left Michigan State after the 87 season to become the defensive backs coach for the Houston Oilers. Spent a couple of seasons in the NFL before he was hired as the Toledo Rockets head coach ahead of the 1990 season. So Nick wasn't at Toledo very long, though. After improving the team from 6-5 in 1989 to 9-2 in 1990. Geez, that's the year that I moved out here to fabulous Las Vegas, 1990. He went back to the NFL and became a defensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. Now, in 1995, Nick came back to Michigan State. So he spent 4 years with the Browns as Bill Belichick's top defensive assistant. And the Browns finished below 500 in Saban's first 3 seasons with the team, but improved to 11-5 in 1994 and had the best scoring defense in the National Football League at 12.8 points per game. That is pretty damn impressive. Now, after a 29-9 loss to the Steelers in the divisional round of the playoffs, Nick left the Browns for his second college head coaching gig after 3 consecutive 6-loss seasons. Michigan State hired Saban to replace George Perles. Now, in 1999, Nick left Michigan State for LSU, entered into a very opportunistic job. In fact, Michigan State didn't have a losing season, if any, of Saban's first 4 years with the school, but also never won more than 7 games. So he was always like above average. He was good, not great. The Spartans had a record of 26-22-1 through his first 4 years. And guess what? He made a big leap in 1999. Michigan State started 6-0 before ending the season on a 3-game winning streak to finish the regular season 9-2. And those 9 wins included wins over Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State. Of course, that is always deserving of a round of applause, as Michigan State was having one of its best seasons ever. Well, let's just say in years. LSU was struggling, and so the Bengal Tigers went 4-7 under Gary DiNardo in 1998 and started the 1999 season at 2-8 before he was canned after a 20-7 loss to the Houston Cougars at Conference USA program at the time. So DiNardo's firing put LSU in the coaching market, and the Tigers made a hire that ended up changing the landscape of college football. 2003, LSU won its first national title since 1958. That looks like a 45-year span. And the Tigers, in fact, won 8 games in Saban's first season and then went 10-3 in the 2001 season. After an 8-5 campaign in 2002, LSU entered the season number 14th in the AP Top 25, and that was as low as LSU would be ranked all season. In fact, LSU started the season 5-0, was knocked off. They actually knocked off number 7, Georgia, 17-10 in week 4. A loss to Florida was only a blip as LSU reeled off 6 straight wins to clinch the SEC West and earn a spot at the conference title game. The Bengal Tigers met Georgia, again in Atlanta. It's where they have those SEC title games, and easily took down the Bulldogs 34-13. Same score in which Michigan just pummeled Washington in the national title game. Now, of course, the win moved LSU from number 3 to number 2 in the BCS ranking and secured the Tiger spot in the Sugar Bowl to play for the national title. LSU ended up beating Oklahoma 21-14 on January 4, 2004, 20 years ago, as Oklahoma's high-flying offense was held to a virtual standstill. Now, in 2004, Nick Saban left LSU for the Miami Dolphins. Now, even though he had just won his first national title, Nick felt the pull of the NFL once again. In fact, LSU followed its national title winning season with a 9-2 campaign that included losses to Auburn and Georgia. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the Miami Dolphins were in the market for a new head coach after firing Dave Wanstead. Of course, that wasn't Dave's first firing in his career. Of course, they got rid of him in the middle of the season, so Miami had stumbled to a 4-2 record in 2004 after winning 10 games in the previous season, and was intrigued by Saban's success as a college head coach and NFL assistant. So, Nick Saban accepted the position on Christmas Day and moved on another NFL jersey and moved his journey into Miami. LSU finished the season 9-3 after a Capital One Bowl loss and hired Les Miles as Nick Saban's successor. So, in 2007, Nick head right back to college. He's like, you know what? I'm out of here. The Dolphins went 9-7 in his first season, finished second in the AFC East to the Patriots in 2006. Then again, no one was beating New England at that time anyway. So in 2006, the Dolphins took a step back, and the team had signed former Minnesota Vikings quarterback Dante Culpepper in the offseason, as Culpepper was recovering from a significant knee injury that he had the season previous. And the signing of Culpepper didn't work out, as he was a shell of what he used to be. And let's face it, Joey Harrington stepped in and Well, that was the quarterback, and that was the end of that. As Miami struggled through its 6-10 season, Alabama was sliding backwards. The Crimson Tide went 10-2 in Mike Shula's third season in 2005, but fell to 6-6 in 2006, and the school decided to part ways with Don Shula's son after his fourth year, and suddenly the top job at one of the most historical programs was available. So on January 3rd of 2007, Nick Saban was officially hired as Alabama's next head coach. In the beginning of the best run in modern college football history, 2009, Alabama climbed right back to the top, went from 7-6, and all the way the Tide capped a 14-0 season with a big win over Texas in the BCF game, and Alabama allowed just 11.7 points per game that season. Of course, its roster had great players like Mark Ingram, Julio Jones, Kareem Jackson, etc., Dante Hightower, and others. And as soon as he came to Alabama, Saban showed that he could lure top talent to Tuscaloosa, and we know what happened from there, folks. Saban won his third national title in 2011. 2012, Alabama goes back-to-back. 2015, Alabama won its fourth title under Saban. 2017, Alabama beat Georgia for another title. 2020, Nick Saban seals his seventh and final national championship, and believe me, this guy has done it. He's retired, and good for him. Let's face it, if you could go 292-71, in 206 and 29 to 17 years at Alabama, you've done something right. Saban's teams won more than 80% of their games in the 28 years as a college head coach, and this guy has a win percentage of about 88%. Nice round of applause for Nick Saban, and we wish you well, young man. Enjoy your retirement. We're going to be back here on the Circus in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UppercutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UppercutChops.com.
to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thanks, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. Folks, this segment is brought to you by the Chicago Food Favorites. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. It's a fun page to participate in. You could post your favorite foods if you like any kind of pizza or hot dogs or Italian beef. Maybe you like some good desserts, some cannolis, some kolaczkis. You like some baklava, some good Greek food, Italian food, Chinese food, Mexican food, Polish food, German food. It's all there. Good soul food, Cajun food, you name it, they've got it. Plus good old-fashioned American meat and potatoes kind of things. Check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. And even if you're not from Chicago, you don't have to be. Maybe you just like some of those foods, especially pizza. Go ahead and have some fun with the page. We don't get anything for saying this. This is just a lot of fun and something that maybe other people want to have some fun with, just like you. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right, big welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, including our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the New York Yankees and the Alabama Crimson Tide, which we just mentioned, and we're not done with them just yet. Big welcome into everybody that may be listening in Southern California, all the way up to Seattle, on all of our affiliates. We have lots and lots of affiliates. Denver, Phoenix, of course, Las Vegas right here, all the way down to Dallas and Houston and New Orleans and New York City, all the way down to Miami. Big hello to our friends over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM, WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves out of Auburn, Alabama, stretching from Montgomery all the way to Columbus, Georgia. WBGY down in Southwest Florida, a whole bunch of points in between, even up to Chicago and Milwaukee and Detroit, Cleveland, you name it, we're there. You can't get away from us. All right. So it was Nick Saban in the entire first segment because the guy has done so much. It's insane to imagine. All the national titles, the 7 titles, and the incredible win percentage of 88%. That's unbelievable. You know, they say that's beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Right? So the reality is, look, this guy's going to win beyond a reasonable doubt, but Nick has just had a golden career, but he's had some ups and downs too, but he seemed to be able to mitigate those pretty well. And that's the thing that I admire most, is he has been able to attack adversity and really come out smelling like a rose instead of the other end of the hose, if you know what I mean. Anyway, the question is now, who will replace Nick Saban at Alabama? And, you know, lots of people have this report, that rumor, this rumor, whatever. And so Yahoo said there are 5 candidates, and I would say there's more like 25 candidates. But look at it this way. They say that Nick Saban's replacement at Alabama will be expected to win national championships, no kidding. And, of course, note the plural, indicating multiple, not just one. Best of luck, of course, to the next coach. But the successor, first of all, has to learn how to beat the teams you've got to beat. They're going to have to figure out. Nick Saban had the secret formula on how to beat Auburn largely, but watch out, War Eagle will creep right up on you, and Auburn could end up stealing the lunch money of Alabama for the next several years and taking dominance over in that matchup. Of course, we are broadcasting right now into Auburn, Alabama at WAUD 1230, home of the Atlanta Braves. And look, hey, we may be a little bit partial. That's okay. We're also on Alabama's radio network over in Honolulu, Hawaii. But guess what, folks? We want a little bit of balance. We don't want to see the same teams over and over and over, right? You kind of get sick of seeing that. And that's why I had mentioned yesterday regarding the NFL playoffs, I'd almost like to see a couple of teams that haven't been there. You know, it'd be kind of cool. Of course, I'm completely digressing, and I will for just a moment. I would love to see the Cleveland Browns represent the AFC and the Detroit Lions represent the NFC. Now, that would be cool. It would probably be arguably the worst rated Super Bowl in the history of Super Bowls, but then again, it would be 2 teams that have never been to a Super Bowl. So I guess what I'm trying to say here in college football, people are kind of sick of seeing the same teams over and over. And so, look, Michigan's win. Yeah, Michigan has won more games technically than any other program, but they haven't won as many national titles as one would imagine. That's the first time since, I think, 1997 that Michigan won themselves a national title. And the one before that, I think, was 1948 or something to the effect. So, good for Michigan. They were certainly deserving, but this is not about Michigan right now. It's just about getting a little bit of mix-up here. And so if you bring in a new successor, which you're going to Alabama, the question is, who could do it? But look, that person has to, well, technically, they're the successor to the greatest coach in the modern era of college football history. And they'll inherit a powerhouse program that even during the so-called down year, relatively speaking, of course, managed to snap Georgia's long win streak, win the SEC, and reach the college football playoff. So Alabama came within a snap of beating Michigan in the Rose Bowl. I mean, you talk about a very evenly matched game. That was exciting. I mean, that really was the national title game. Nonetheless, the search will focus on coaches who can fulfill the non-negotiable factors. I think there's 3 of them. Number 1, you must be an experienced bowl subdivision coach, right? And in the Power 5, more particularly. He also must have won or played for national championships, or at least have familiarity with how championship teams or programs are built, right? That's what Alabama's been doing for years. Nick Saban's just been doing it. It is what it is, folks. So don't look for an up-and-coming coach, kind of like Auburn made a mistake by hiring Brian Harsin from Boise State. And as soon as they made the hire, I was screaming, bad move, wrong hire, wrong hire, wrong hire. In the same way, other programs do the same thing. It was a terrible hire, in my opinion, for Auburn, and thank God they've got a better coach now, because that guy didn't have championship caliber experience, just being real. And all he did was maintain a Boise State team instead of grow the program, right? And there is the problem. Also, this new prospect for a coach, must have the personality to thrive in Alabama's spotlight, and there aren't many coaches built to succeed in this environment. Now, according to somebody within the Alabama system, we'll say Mr. Greg Byrne, if you know what I mean, here's a quote. As with any coaching search, our goal is to be thorough but expedient. Our ideal candidate will be strong in recruiting and relationship building, player development, excel in X's and O's, and have the overall ability to lead the historic program. There will be plenty of rumors out there during this process. The next time I talk publicly will be to announce our new head coach. And if you don't hear from me, don't believe it. Roll Tide, close quote from Mr. Byrne. And we'll just give him just a little bit of a round of applause just because we can. All right, that's enough. Nonetheless, the coming days will be a very interesting process. There will be a little bit of clarity to the search, and of course, and here are allegedly 5 coaches that could be on the radar. Of course, Dabo Swinney, you got to consider him. Of course, Alabama graduate, has been linked to this potential opening since transforming Clemson into a national power. And remember, that Tigers team beat Alabama twice in the playoff championship game, and that's enough to prove Dabo's credentials. And of course, also, that he's hit on a rougher patch the last handful of seasons might be something Alabama considers, though the broader resume ranks among the best of this generation of coaches, and Dabo has spoken of his love for the program in the past, but always deflected questions about coming to Alabama. Now he'll need to answer. Think about that one. How about Lane Kiffin as a possibility? So Lane is the most likely member of Saban's coaching tree to rank near the top of Alabama's board, and he's rebuilt his reputation with Ole Miss after earning another chance, thanks in large in part to his stints as Alabama's offensive coordinator when he helped install the scheme that yielded multiple national titles in the playoff era. And Kiffin has built something special with Ole Miss, but I'm looking at it this way, folks. He's going to take over a program if he ends up the Alabama coach with substantially more resources and a greater opportunity to dominate the SEC. So Kiffin has the offensive mind and personality to thrive in this position. He actually looks like a pretty good option. Now, Dan Lanning in Oregon is another one. And look, this guy also has SEC experience as a graduate assistant, though, at Alabama, and as a defensive coordinator under Kirby Smart at Georgia. So that makes him a little bit intriguing. Now, since taking over Oregon, he's constructed a team that blends cutting-edge offense and their philosophies with nearly unmatched physicality. And look, Dan Lanning's only 37. He might be Alabama's top board choice for multiple reasons. First, think about this. He is composed, he's young, he's hungry, and he has a defensive pedigree to maintain Saban standards on that side of the ball. He's also shown the ability to recruit some of the best players in the country. Plus, he was able to obviously keep Bo Nix over there in Oregon. And Bo arguably had the best season of a quarterback in the country. Now, Kalen DeBoer from Washington, his stock has blown up since Washington went to the national title game. But unlike the others, this guy has no experience in the SEC. So that might be a deal breaker. How about Mike Norvell from Florida State? Here's an interesting one. Now, he took over another historic powerhouse in Florida State, and within 4 seasons turned them around to the top of the ACC. People say, well, it was a weak division or a weak conference. Not necessarily. So the reality is, given that Florida State came up just short of the top 4, which they really should have been, this guy also is a very, very intriguing prospect for Alabama. We'll see what they have in store. I don't think it's going to be Jim Harbaugh. I believe Jim Harbaugh goes to the Chicago Bears, and we'll see about that coming up soon. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Sports Circus, right here on your favorite station. I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus, and we prove it every day.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more.
800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. That's 800-957-6209.
The old way of living with diabetes is a pain. You've got to remember to do your testing and always need to stick your fingers to test your blood sugar. The new way to live your life with diabetes is with a continuous glucose monitor. Apply a discrete sensor on your body, and it continuously monitors your glucose levels, helping you spend more time in range and freeing you from painful finger sticks. If you are living with type 1 or type 2 diabetes and you use insulin or have had hypoglycemic events, you might be eligible for a CGM through your insurance benefits. U.S. Med partners with over 500 private insurance companies and Medicare. We offer free shipping, 90-day supplies, and we bill your insurance. Call us today for a free benefits check.
800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. That's 800-659-7805.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting. Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. This segment brought to you in part by the Sports Circus. Make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which are podcasts, and they can be found on all podcast platforms, whether it is Amazon or Google or Audible, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora. Geez, folks, just think of all the different ones out there. Apple, you can't get away from us. All right, so make sure you check out thesportscircus.com also for our upcoming guest schedule. Lots of featured guests coming up. We can't really tell who, but we have two new correspondents that are going to be joining the circus, and one of them is for football, for professional football from the NFL. I can't tell you who it is just yet. You'll see a press release come out on it soon. And also another one for the entertainment business. Boy, this is really good stuff. Nice round of applause for those two. And when you get the press release notification, it'll be picked up by, I'm going to guess, about 200 television stations, publications, radio stations. You'll see it everywhere, folks. You'll be able to read it. You'll be able to listen to it. It is what it is. Lots of great stuff coming up here on the circus. And also make sure to check out the partners page on the sportscircus.com. Lots of great partners there. Of course, Al's #1 Italian beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. And folks, if you're not over there to have some great food, go to goldbelly.com and check out Al's Beef in the search bar. And there you can pick up all your favorites from Al's Italian Beef. Lots and lots of good food there, folks. I'd highly recommend checking out Goldbelly. And let's face it, folks, some great food available all over the country, not like it used to be, but now you can actually get it from just about anywhere in America. And it's all thanks to a really cool website that, again, we don't get a penny for saying this. We're not trying to promote anything other than great food, just like on the Chicago Food Favorites page on Facebook. All right. Welcome back to everybody. You know who you are. And so, that being said, about all the college football opportunity from the Alabama retiring of Nick Saban and some possible coaches, look, I don't think that Jim Harbaugh is going to leave Michigan to go to Alabama. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to leave Michigan to go to the National Football League. So here's sort of a conundrum. Does Jim Harbaugh stay at Michigan? No, because there's nothing really left to accomplish there. He's already done everything. Now he's, like he said in his interviews, he's allowed to sit at the big boys table with his brother who won a Super Bowl and his dad that won a national title. So now it's his turn to move on to something bigger. Now remember, Jim Harbaugh has already been to 2 NFC championship games. This guy knows how to build winning teams. And a team in desperate need right now is the Chicago Bears. And they're only one other choice that he could possibly go to in the NFL. And they've got a quarterback. And that would be the LA Chargers. But of course, you can call them the San Diego Chargers, but the LA Chargers. Because they've got Justin Herbert and they've got some good defensive pieces with Khalil Mack. And of course, one of the brothers from Bosa. One of the Bosa brothers. I'm not sure whether it's, I think it's Nick. Is it Nick Bosa? I think Nick Bosa's there. Anyway, I went to school with Nick and Joey's uncle, Eric, way back in Chicagoland at Oak Park and River Forest High School 100 years ago. And in fact, Eric's nephew, I forget his name. I think it's Chad. If I'm not, no, that's Don Beebe's kid, Chad Beebe. Anyway, what I was going to say is those Bosa brothers are legit. They're good. And so one of those guys in San Diego, or I should say LA, with the Chargers, with Khalil Mack, and they've got a good quarterback. Jim Harbaugh could migrate over to the Chargers, but it would behoove him to go to his old team where there's some unfinished business. Now, Jim Harbaugh was a very good quarterback for the Chicago Bears, but he didn't have all the pieces around him. Now he'd have a chance to build a team that essentially beloved him. And at the end of the day, Jim Harbaugh would be a very, very good fit in Chicago. Plus, it's not far from Michigan where he's at now. So it wouldn't be an enormous transition to go back across the country like he was in the Bay Area with San Francisco. So watch and see if Jim Harbaugh doesn't go to the Chicago Bears. And the Chicago Bears likely will get rid of Justin Fields. And of course, that is an astounding round of applause for that. Sorry, folks. Justin Fields, in my opinion, is an average quarterback. And you say, why is he an average quarterback? I'm just completely digressing because I can't hear. Justin Fields has not had good quarterback coaching. Now think back. You say, oh, he's an Ohio State quarterback. First of all, there's one problem. Second problem is Ohio State is not where he started. He started at Georgia under Kirby Smart. And he couldn't even beat, Justin Fields couldn't even beat out Jake Fromm as the starting quarterback. He was a backup to Jake from State Farm, if you know what I mean. Right? So anyway, it happened that Justin Fields made a transfer over to Ohio State. And hell, you could put a German Shepherd in the backfield there, and they'll be a great quarterback. It just happens that Justin Fields had a big line in front of him in the same way that Troy Aikman, when he came out of UCLA, had an enormous line built in front of him after a very punishing first season, winning 1 out of 16 games. Troy Aikman then had a nice big line built in front of him. Jimmy Johnson made sure he had all the right players in front of his 3-time Super Bowl champion quarterback. But at the end of the day, Justin Fields didn't have the coaching that even Troy Aikman had. Right? So let's think about this. Does Justin Fields stick around Chicago? No. Justin Fields has fundamental flaws as a quarterback. He doesn't go through his progressions properly. He rolls first and then passes. Justin Fields cannot throw over the top of the defenders. I had a talk with a longtime defensive back from the National Football League. We talked at length about this. And so when you think about a smaller quarterback trying to throw over the top of a defender, yes, it can happen. But if you're not trained in a way where you know how to play the quarterback position, there's a problem. Now think back to when Brett Favre came into the National Football League from Southern Miss, right? So he was a Golden Eagle from Southern Miss. He goes to Atlanta. Atlanta had no quarterbacks coach really to think of to really help this young kid develop. And he started having some problems, some personal problems. Atlanta says, we got to get this guy out of here. Let's deal him off to Green Bay for a broken Coke machine. Maybe they could do something with him. And needless to say, Green Bay developed their quarterback. Don Majkowski was the quarterback at Green Bay before Brett Favre. Well, in the same way that Drew Bledsoe was the quarterback before Tom Brady. Drew Bledsoe was a decent quarterback. And he had an enormous contract that, well, let's face it, when he got hurt, it was next man up and Tom Brady stepped in. So in this particular case, we think about what happened with Justin Fields. Well, Justin Fields just didn't develop as a quarterback because he didn't have the right coaching and not the right system. It's system, system, system. Now, will the Bears go out and get another quarterback? Here's what I'm thinking in the craziest of ways, folks. I'll get to the college argument that I have in the next segment here. But here's what I'm thinking with the NFL. Denver just had a problem with who? With Russell Wilson. Maybe Russell Wilson at 35 years of age comes to Chicago, basically plugs a hole. The Bears end up drafting Caleb Williams, about the same size as Russell Wilson, maybe just a little bit smaller than him. Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl, of course, as we know of. But at the same time, guess who else is available for the Chicago Bears? You could see the possible reuniting of Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, because Pete Carroll was just fired by the Seattle Seahawks. So can you imagine Pete Carroll, who is one of my favorite coaches of all time, just one of those consummate positive thinkers. And the guy, I think he's 72 years old, and he still runs up and down the sidelines like he did when he was probably 50 years of age. But imagine Pete Carroll coaching the Chicago Bears. Sorry, Jim Harbaugh, just in case you happen to go to L.A., Imagine Pete Carroll going to the Bears, Russell Wilson going to the Bears, and we have the Seattle Seahawks 2.0 in Chicago, and the Bears defense is getting a little bit better. Now, that would be a very interesting proposition, and frankly, that would be the only thing I think that would save Ryan Poles' job. I think Matt Eberflus is already gone. And so imagine that. Now he'll have his own quarterback. Yes, guess what? Where did Pete Carroll coach before Seattle? At the University of Southern California. So if they draft a USC quarterback and he knows a system, essentially, Pete Carroll brings a defensive flair, but he also brings an offensive firepower. So, of course, it would be a really good match for Carroll to have an SC quarterback in Chicago and a team that he could technically coach with his old quarterback from Seattle. Now, this makes all the sense in the world. The question is, who's talking about it? I'm talking about it. I don't know anybody else who's talking about this right now. And to me, folks, take a step back and look at it. It seems reasonable. And the Bears have what? They've got money to spend. They could get a rookie contract with Caleb Williams and pay Russell Wilson a fair amount of money, right? They can make Denver pay a portion thereof, a large portion thereof, and they could pay Pete Carroll. Folks, in a kooky kind of way, I'm looking for the Bears to make those kinds of moves, and I have to tell you, I'm excited about the possibility of my Bears actually competing. The team that I grew up with, I'm sick of seeing Green Bay beat them left, right, and center. It's disgusting. So guess what? Watch out, Green Bay. You could see Seattle rumble on in to the NFC North in the form of Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere.
Can't beat fun at the old ballpark, friends. Hi, Popeye. That would be a home run in a phone booth. I don't know what the big deal about Cracker Jack is. Did you ever go and buy a pack of Cracker Jack thinking you're going to get a prize and find no prize in the box? Here's the pitch. That might not sound important to some people, but when you're a little kid, especially from humble origin, and they cheat you out of a prize, there's a bouncing ball. Second baseman has a Barbary over to first. It's hard to think in laudatory terms of the product.
I think if there was an occasional box of Cracker Jacks that found no prizes for the little Harry Carey many years ago.
You got that right. And boy, when a box of Cracker Jack to me meant a lot of money. Here's a pitch, bounce foul. That's the most asinine marketing I've ever heard of. 1 ball, 1 strike. These guys say, well, you sing about Cracker Jack. I said that I only sing it because it's in the song. Here's a pitch foul back. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, even to this day, some youngsters who buy a box of Cracker Jack don't find a prize in the box. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 out. Well, if you're going to talk about our congressman being crooked, here's a pitch foul out of play. Why not talk about commercial products who don't do what they represent to do?
There's a smash to Squires. He's got it. 1, 2, 3, nothing across. We're going to the bottom of the 7th now to score. All tied up. Milwaukee 4, the White Sox 4. Hey! Everybody! All right, Nancy, let me hear you. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back for its root for the White Sox. If they don't win, it's a shame. Or
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Al Bubba Baker, quarterback breaker and the rib maker.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, make sure to check out the sportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, and of course, all of our podcasts as well. Of course, podcasts. When I say podcast, I'm not talking that we actually do a podcast. We do a real radio and television show, unlike the 3 million other podcasts that are sitting out there. Well, guess what? If you want to turn that podcast of yours into, I don't know, into a real show where you can get real sponsors, unless you're in the top 1% of 1%, it's hard to be seen as a podcaster. And there's no fixing it in the mix in real live television or radio. You do what you do. It's like a stage show, and you make mistakes. So you make mistakes, big deal. Just keep on going, like tango on, right? Just one of those things. So at the end of the day, if you want to turn that show of yours into a real show where you can pick up those real big sponsors and all that other fun stuff, who knows, make a little bit of money doing it. Well, guess what? You could check out AMP TV, AAMP.TV, or you can email AMP TV for your distribution and production of all of these wonderful ideas, these shows that you have. Go to info@amp.tv, info@aamp.tv, info@aamp.tv for all your broadcast, production, and distribution needs. All right, welcome back to everybody listening in on our affiliates and our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates, independents from coast to coast. Hotel TV in all Nielsen-rated markets. I think that's about 210 of them, plus an additional 206 stations that we frankly don't have time to name off. We'll put a press release out on those stations. We haven't done it yet. It's just, listen, folks, we're a small shop. We've been doing this for over 7 years with thousands of hours of content, and there's only so much time in a day. So look out for that press release along with the other new correspondents that are going to be on the show. So something that really drives me crazy, thinking about money. I just mentioned sponsors and stuff like that. Now, think about this name, image, and likeness thing. So Company X or Company Y or Company Z, not to be confused with X, which is former Twitter or whatever the heck it is, right? Let's say Company whatever. Well, they pay to advertise, right? They pay for either popular people to advertise their products or services, or they want to have it on television or radio or streaming or whatever the heck it is, right? Well, here's the issue. The name, image, and likeness money is so early in its development. It's kind of like the Wild West. We think about which way money could actually be used or grossly overused, essentially as payoffs. I mean, bona fide payoffs. So let's say School X has a big-time program, and they want big-time recruits, 5-star recruits, this kind of thing. So if we think about that, and let's say Company whatever wants to, they're a big booster of this university, this big-time program. So let's say they want to put in their 2 cents to help the school continue its winning tradition, whatever the heck that means. Let's say they won national titles left, right, and center, whatever the heck it is. Not singling anything out, I'm just giving you an idea. And so let's just say a booster has a lot of money. Well, back in the day, the boosters couldn't pay the kids. But nowadays, the NCAA wants their cut. So they say, oh, sure, go ahead and pay them name, image, and likeness money to advertise your product, service, widget, whatever the heck it is. Well, here's where it gets a little dicey, and nobody ever talks about this that I've ever heard. Look, the reason we do this is because other shows are too scared to talk about. Another show punches you in your mouth and makes you beg for more. That's what we're doing here, folks, because the reality is this. Nobody's talking about the idea that some schools will allow mega payments to their student athletes, maybe a $10 million payout for wearing a shirt or something, whatever, to advertise this particular organization or whatever the heck it is, right? So maybe the average student would get $100,000, which is complete lunacy to me. So imagine a company pays maybe hypothetically $10 million for this particular student to advertise whatever the heck it is, or to wear a shirt from a company. Well, this is a gross and negligent payoff, in my opinion. And this is exactly how the name, image, and likeness thing gets completely out of control in the first place. So here, imagine this. Now the NCAA says, hey, we want to stay in the game because now we're going to have these big super conferences. The SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and maybe the ACC. They're all going to go to like 20 teams. So you have 4 super conferences. Who knows? Maybe even the Mountain West might take over the Pac-12. I don't know. That's for you, loyal listener Larry. But reality is this. The NCAA could easily go away if those universities decide we want to create this and essentially cut the NCAA out, because they'll make up 80 schools of the biggest schools, the biggest Division I programs, right? All the FBS schools. So now you've got to ask yourself, what about the NCAA? How do they salvage themselves or make themselves relevant? Maybe they make rulings that would seem counterintuitive, just like this one. The NCAA moves closer to allowing direct name, image, and likeness payments to athletes. And I'm booing not because they're cutting themselves out of the picture, but they're trying to keep themselves relevant. And of course, these athlete students, because they're not student athletes at this point, they're just pros, somehow dressed up in college gear, which technically once you're paid $1, you lose your amateur status. That's what happened to me 100 years ago back in school when I was a budding baseball player. I had to go the tough route because my baseball eligibility was used up. But in this particular case, NCAA President Charlie Baker expects the Division I Council to soon begin work building a framework. Yes, he's going to build a framework around the radical proposal he announced just last month that would permit schools to offer athletes more benefit. Now, in a conversation with reporters, as well as his address to administrators gathered at the NCAA convention, Baker outlined the next steps for Project DI. The proposal he revealed last month that would allow schools to directly strike name, image, and likeness deals and create a new subdivision for even more direct school pay to players. Come on, man, this is stupid. Because now all these athlete students are saying what? Quite simply, show me the money! And we'll show you more money. That's what it's all about. So the Division I Board of Directors is scheduled to meet very soon in Phoenix, where they are expected to review the proposal and charge the council with creating recommendations related to the first 2 items of Baker's 3-part plan. And this one actually comes by way of Yahoo Sports. We don't want to edit the credit. We want to make sure we give them their just due. But everybody's reporting it, but we want to call them out because they did a good job in reporting here. Now, Baker's proposal would permit schools to first offer athletes unlimited educational enhancements. Yeah? Well, what the hell does that mean? And second, make name, image, and likeness deals directly with athletes. The third part of the plan, to be explored after the first 2, calls for the creation of a new FBS subdivision in which schools would be required to put in to some kind of a minimum amount of $30,000 annually per athlete for half of the school's athletes. This is stupid. This is professional sports, folks. You're paying these kids. Now, asked if there are any reason the council would not take part in Project DI, Baker shook his head and said, no. Now, the undertaking of such a monumental change, the NCAA permitting direct pay, is a massive endeavor, but Baker is hoping for an accelerated timeline. Yeah, let's go ahead and push this thing through so we can keep the NCAA relevant and we can get some money too. So according to a timeline and documents obtained by Yahoo, the council would have final recommendations to the DI Board of Directors in June. And adoption could happen as soon as August, though that's only a suggested timeline. Why is it suggested? Because people want to get paid. At the end of the day, it's all about money. How disgusting. The third part of the proposal, a new subdivision, will then be explored by the council for potentially adopting at next year's convention in January 2025. And of course, Baker expects his proposal to undergo changes during the process, and he said, quote, "It is a table setter. I've worked in government a long time, and in government, you file a bill. You don't expect to get it back the same way that you file it. You don't think it's written on stone tablet." Close quote. On a stone tablet. Close quote. So, the first conversation is around additional education enhancements, as well as the NIL piece, which will entertain a conversation about where NIL belongs, according to him, which I think it belongs in the garbage can. So his proposal would permit schools to bring NIL agreements with their walls, right within their walls. So that means having the ability to buy the exclusive rights of their players, NIL, a move that might eventually remove collectives from the space, as he acknowledged. But here's the thing. What they're doing now is conducting professional business on an educational institution campus. What about the state universities? You think the taxpayers want to have something to say about that? You're damn right they will. So Baker hopes a framework around the two items, of course, educational benefits and the NIL deals, will be made to require schools to work within Title IX of the federal law requiring universities to offer equal benefit to women and men athletes. In the NIL collective space, Baker says 99% of the money is going to men athletes, a claim some collectives insist is not true. Sorry, it is true, folks. The purpose of the first two items, according to him, is to create a more controlled and level playing field for men and women, and that's a bunch of BS in my opinion. And he says, quote, "I do worry a lot about what's going to happen to women's sports if this whole thing doesn't find its way inside the four walls of the school," close quote. Well, folks, if this guy was worried about the women's sports, as he claimed, he sure as hell, in my opinion, would not allow men to compete in women's sports in the first place. This is just an abomination of college athletics. And folks, this is spilling down into high schools. What a dumpster fire this is. It's almost like burning oil. I mean, how do you put that out? What a mess. This whole thing is a gigantic mess. And this guy, Mr. Baker, is only making it worse. Folks, listen, let these kids go to school. Let them get an education. Let them get scholarships. Let them learn something. Because when their professional sports, if they make it that far, when their careers are over, remember, football, the careers last about 2.5 years. Baseball, it takes years just to climb the system, etc., etc. Look at basketball. What a mess that is. One and done. The college sports plane is terrible, and they're creating an awful level of professional sports by letting these kids go there without the bumps and bruises. It's a mess. Let's see what happens. We'll see you in about 23 hours on your favorite station right here. Until then, so long, everyone.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196. Paid for by Legal Alert Line.